Hey, Dylan Fry, the real estate guy, here to be your guy for any real estate needs in the Kansas City area. And I'm with the Fry Home Team. Today, we are changing things up a little bit because we want to focus on people moving to the Kansas City area and helping you out, helping you understand what's going on in the market. So we are going to start doing interviews with local realtors. They can tell you a lot more about the market and what the process is, whether you're buying a home or selling a home in the Kansas City area. Today, we have a great guest on. We've got Justin Gifford with Gifford Homes. He's a part of the ED Waters Network, and he has a ton of experience over the last 7-8 years in this, and he's went through the COVID experience and houses going next day and different stuff like that, and then how the market's changed over the last 6 months. We are going to talk about all of that, so make sure you stay tuned so you can hear a little bit about what's going on in the market. Before we get into that, if this is your first time on the channel, make sure that you hit that subscribe button and then hit that little bell so that you'll get future notifications of the different interviews we're doing. And then go check out the rest of the channel. I know we've got a lot of local business owners on there that can help you with your move to the Kansas City area, as well as different neighborhood videos and everything else that you could possibly imagine. Again, today we are going to be talking with Justin Gifford. And to get into that, I just want to do a short introduction. Justin, tell us a little bit about who you are and then how you got into real estate.
Yeah, so Justin Gifford with Gifford Homes, ED Waters Network. Yeah, so I've been doing it since, 2016. My previous career was in libraries, decided to do something different after we had kids late. Had always been kind of interested in real estate, sort of went to a seminar and was immediately enamored with it, and I've loved it ever since. So, yeah.
Yeah. So you went to a seminar. So what industry were you in before you got into real estate?
I always tell people it's maybe the polar opposite. My background is in film, so I turned that into a career in libraries. So I ran the film department at the Kansas City, Kansas Public Library, film and music department.
Yeah. Which is something extremely interesting that I didn't know about you until I was doing research for this podcast.
Okay.
Because I was looking at it and I seen that on your LinkedIn back there, and I was like, "What the heck?" Using that,
yeah.
Which it threw me off a little bit. And you're correct; it is the polar opposite. So, what got you enamored with real estate?
I'd always been interested in construction and architecture and things like that. I mean, initially, kind of thought I wanted to be an appraiser until I found out. This day and age, you can't just turn around and decide to be an appraiser. There's 2 years of unpaid internship you have to go through and all that.
Oh my God.
That's kind of initially my thing. But I'd always been fascinated by real estate, homes, that sort of thing, and thought it would be a good pairing. And yeah.
That's crazy that on the appraiser side that you have to go through 2 years unpaid internship because you get 2 years of agents just being mad as hell at you. That makes zero sense, and I can see why we have an appraiser shortage that's affecting the market right now.
Absolutely. I tell people, I think the only new appraisers are going to be children of appraisers that can do that while they're like getting out of high school or whatever. Don't need to make have a full-time job because I don't know where they're coming from.
And why would you do it?
Exactly.
I mean, and that's something they're gonna have to adjust. I mean, and every industry does eventually. They're gonna have to adjust that because they're not gonna get any new people.
Yeah, I think that was all based on the little I know of it. I think it's all based on the 2008, how they totally went and reworked financing and how you get a mortgage, and to the same thing of like
correct because Yeah, because now lenders can't have any communication with any one-on-one communication with them. So we essentially have to act as the middleman between the appraiser and the lender and try to make this deal work.
Yeah, actually.
And it's hard. I mean, appraisers have such a hold on what happens in a real estate transaction, which is crazy because I think they make the least out of the entire real estate transaction.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, and it's interesting that you feel like everybody's got a different personality. Every industry, there's multiple personalities. I mean, you can show up to a house and it can be an incredibly nice person interested in chatting with you, whatever. And then you'll have some that are completely standoffish. I'm sure you have too, where they don't want to hear, they don't want your comps. They don't want they're just let them do their job and leave them alone. And then you have others that are totally willing to talk to you and why you came up with the price you did and that sort of thing. So
correct. Yeah. And I've only had a couple that were on that bad end. And most of the times, like I always try to kill people with kindness.
Absolutely.
So I can tell normally about 5 minutes into a conversation whether you're having a bad day or not. And at that point, like I am just going to be over the top, nice, smiling the whole time I'm talking to you. And I've noticed that helps sometimes because I mean they do deal with a lot of crap.
Yeah.
So they're dealing with agents that are pissed off at them because they didn't have the right price or something's going on and they don't understand. Like it's hard to comp houses in this market.
Absolutely.
The last couple of years, I mean, the statistics came out the other day on the MLS, and even though houses are sitting longer, they've still appreciated over the last year.
When I was making sure, because I keep telling people that, and so I looked literally at last week's stats to make sure I was coming in here going to still tell the true story. But yeah, Kansas City is still one of the few markets where the average price point right now compared to last year is up. And I think it's up like
10%.
Yeah.
No, the MLS released their statistics there last week, and it was up 10% in the overall numbers. The crazy thing is the overall sales were down from like they were up in the 250 overall annual last year, and they were down to like 179 in the month of, what month are we in now? We're in September. Yeah. So in the month of August, last year there was like 250 some odd homes in the MLS, and now there's only 170. So less houses are selling, which is why prices keep driving up.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
and sometimes people don't understand that. They're like, why isn't the market falling out? Because inventory just keeps getting lower.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody wants to sell.
No, nobody wants to sell. And then there's just, I mean, let's face it, Kansas City has become kind of a cool place, a cosmopolitan place to live for a bunch of people. I mean, there's coastal people coming, cost of living and everything. There's a lot, there's stuff to do here that people didn't realize. So there's an influx of people, and then we've already got a housing shortage because they didn't build enough houses over COVID. So all of those numbers start to merge into what we've got right now, which is, we're back up a little bit, but a balanced market, as you know, is 6 months. We're still sitting at just over 1 month.
37 days, and which is crazy to think that last year, because that the statistics, that's what I originally wanted to go into, was I wanted to be an actuary. So I love the statistics side of stuff and like diving into the numbers side of it. And like last year in August, it was 17 days on market average, which was everybody was panicking last year when it got to 17. Because the year before it was down in the single digits. And then now it's up to 37, and it's like, well, your house is going to sit a little bit longer. You got to actually market the house, which takes me into like our next topic is how are you illustrating that to the sellers that you're working with now on this changing market? Because that is, I mean, that's the reality of the situation is, yes, their house is worth more than it was last year, but it is going to take us longer to find that perfect buyer because we have to actually find that perfect buyer.
Right. Yeah. And so a big part of how I built my buying business is open houses. That became kind of a niche of mine early on. And I've got a system that I enjoy. And part of that is, there's a social media, schedule and all of that stuff. But I also go back to like, some people don't like to do it, but I still door knock. So I'll door knock for an open house, and I'll talk to the neighbors, and I'll, let them know. I'll invite them over. Sort of the first hour is sort of a VIP neighbor. Come see your neighbor. Everybody wants to see the inside of their neighbor's house, and who knows, you might want to have a friend or family member move into the neighborhood. So come take a look.
Well, and that's a huge part of my marketing pitch when I'm selling a house as well. Is the 3 to 5 miles is where most people that are going to buy your house are going to come from within 3 to 5 miles. If you look at the large statistics side of it, it's within that 3 to 5 miles. So when you're knocking on those neighbors' doors, maybe they have a friend that I don't know how many times I've been talking to other agents, and they're like, the as soon as I put the sign in the door or sign in the yard, the neighbor called me and said, my friend's been waiting forever to get into this neighborhood. And doing that, going that little extra mile for your clients and doing that door knocking and going out and talking to these neighbors, like people think that you're out there soliciting just directly to the neighbors. No, you're letting them know like, hey, this house is coming on the market. You have an opportunity to control who moves in here next.
Right.
Do you want your best friend to move in next door?
Exactly.
Get them on the phone. Let's get them approved.
Right. Exactly. Absolutely. That's exactly my spiel. And so, I had fairly good success with that. And, I've been fairly successful at still moving stuff pretty quickly, because pricing's huge too. So, I mean, I don't know if we're going to talk about that at all, but pricing is huge
I think
as
that
well.
that is a big thing when you're selling a house.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes it's a little tough love situation for somebody to find out it's, maybe not worth what they were hoping for, but generally the last 3 years that conversations have gone pretty well, because typically it's more than people even expect, because they have certain resources. We all know where we're talking about, that they come and look at a price or go look at the price of their home, and they assume, potentially that's what they can get. And oftentimes it's,
well, and I think the Zestimate has been a thing that has affected people quite a bit, where they're like, "Oh, I seen it was there worth this much." And the thing is, anytime I show up to list a house, is I have to have empirical data to back that up.
Right.
So I have to have comps that, because we talked about in the very beginning, is the appraiser situation. Like, it's been so hard to appraise properties lately, where we have to have comps that can back that up.
Yeah.
So it's not like, at the end of the day, it's not my personal opinion what this house is worth. It's your neighbor's personal opinion. You go yell at them. They're the ones that decided to sell their house for $300,000.
Right. Well, people don't want to hear it, but what you want to get out of a house has no bearing on the price of the house.
No, it's what somebody else wants to pay for it.
Exactly.
And you can figure that out if you just look at the data.
Yeah.
And because numbers don't lie. I mean, that's the big thing, is if your neighbor sold for 300 and then your other neighbor sold for 300, guess what? Your house is probably worth 300.
Right. Yeah.
And now there's other factors that go into that, like square footage, how many bedrooms, bathrooms, finished basement, etc. There's so many things that go into pricing a house. And that's why I think you have to find real estate agents that genuinely understand. They walk into a ranch home, it's going to be worth a little bit more than a split level.
Right. Exactly. And making people understand what's desirable. So I'm having conversations the last 2 or 3 years. It used to be, older people transitioning like that to that last house, wanted ranch, no steps and everything. And so that was kind of the older crowd. And now everybody wants main level living, like, so young people, the competition.
What's a trend? Now everybody's like, oh, these houses are worth more, so I want those.
Yeah. And it's like, and you tell me I don't have to climb stairs? I mean, I'm 27 years old, but why climb stairs if I don't have to? Sort of thing.
Correct.
So,
yeah. You see so many of those being built right now, and just because the market is driving it, and people are letting, like, the builders are letting the clientele tell them what they want.
Yeah.
Like, that's the big side of it, is they're like, well, if I can build this one and make more money. Now, builders love to build those split levels, those 2 stories, because it's cheaper to go up than it is to go out.
Exactly.
Like, that's a big thing, is it's, sorry, I got to turn my phone off so that way we don't have interruptions during this thing. And that's a big thing that people got to be cognizant of, is when you are selling your house, is you have to find that target audience, because you don't want to be marketing to a bunch of people that are 50 plus if you are selling a split level,
right,
or 2 story.
Yeah.
Like, you want to be marketing to somebody that maybe has some kids and they are younger, and they want to be on different levels, because they don't want to be listening to the kids running around or running rampant throughout the house and different stuff like that. You have to find the specific people that want to buy that house.
Yeah. Well, and part of my initial buyer interview is, I'll talk to people like, what are your must-haves, your things you really like? But I think just as important as things like you don't want any part of, and because people are going to stick to their no items.
I think that's
tighter.
The biggest part. Yeah.
Versus like, I wanted this, I wanted a ranch in this part of town, and suddenly you're looking for a 2-story colonial, 20 minutes away after you just had a conversation. But if they've talked about things they specifically don't want, those generally don't change.
I have found, so I do a lot of open houses as well. That's where I've gotten a lot of business. I have found people that come to open houses, and they had a disgruntled situation with an agent. So if you're an agent and you're out there watching this is a huge tip. They've had a disgruntled situation with an agent because in the beginning they told them what their no's were, and then they set them up a saved search, and all they got was everything with their nose.
Right. Yep. Yeah. And it's tough, especially when some of it gets kind of specific, because then you're relying on the agent entering the information in MLS correctly. Because you can, sometimes I'll even do 2 searches. I'll do a very specific search to nail down some of those wants, but then I'll do a broader one too, because they may have left one little item filter out that house would be perfect for those people, but because they messed up, that wouldn't have shown up in that search. And so I explain that going in, and that's, I don't do that for everybody, but if it's something that's very specific and needs to be, then I'll do that.
Right there's the big thing is the communication.
Yeah.
You're telling them, hey, here's the thing. These are your no's, right? But if I put these in, you're going to get 0 results.
Right.
So what I'm going to do is I want to set up a search that is very specific so that if the perfect house does pop up, you're going to get that house immediately.
Yeah.
But here's the other thing is I'm going to set this second search up that has a little bit broader. It's more in your price range. It's based on where you want to be. And then you're going to get these notifications of these different houses. Now you get to see the houses that are in that area. And now we can figure out, is this really the area you want to be in?
Right.
Because it may not, like you may have this perfect vision of a house, and then that area doesn't offer any houses like that.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I tell buyers, like the first time we go out, maybe we don't even got a specific home in mind, especially if they're like months away or whatever. I'll take them out once and get them in some houses so they see like what, 1,800 square feet versus 2,400 square feet looks like. I mean,
correct.
They need to know, like they might be asking these questions, like maybe they want a reverse story and a half, and then they get in there and they don't like really the way that house is set up once they get in that space. So it's huge to set expectations and then let them kind of guide you initially to like, okay, here, now you know what this looks like. Do you Correct. Or do you not like it?
Well, and we are in houses every single day. All day. Like that's what we do. Right. We understand the difference of these different types of houses and how they're going to look. And then you can listen, you pick up on the more you're around people in real estate and you see when they're talking about their wants and their needs and stuff. I've grown to where I can normally tell whether they're going to like a house or not like a house just off of pictures.
Yeah.
I had this situation pop up. I got an out-of-state buyer. They were coming into town and they wanted to look at all these different houses. And I said, okay, awesome. Let's go look at them. And then I just through conversation with them as we were preparing for them to come to town. I was like, guys, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think you're going to like any of these houses. And they were like, yeah, but we want to look at them. They're awesome. And I said, hey, I'll go show you. I spent all day with them looking at all these houses. I'd sent them a few that I thought, and they were like, I don't know, maybe not. And then we go and look at all these 6 houses. And I looked at them. I was like, guys, one of the houses that I sent you, I think like just even after we're walking through this is going to be the perfect house for you. And they're like, we'll go take a look at it. It's a 10-minute drive. So we go take a look at this house. They fell in love with it. They absolutely loved it. And that's where like, it's partially the agent's job to figure out what their wants, their needs are, because everybody wants this, oh, well, I want this price, or I want this much land, or I want this. But then you find something that maybe doesn't check all of those boxes, but fits their personality so much better and what they grew to like. Then they're like, oh my God, this is awesome. Like, we don't need that other stuff, or all this other stuff fits in.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more, because oftentimes they'll have these lists of must-haves and things, and then they'll get into a space and then sometimes it's better, not only like you were saying before, set expectations, but also, I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, and I think setting expectations is huge. But not to contradict earlier on in the process is like where we were talking about, I talked about how people get mad because agents are sending them stuff that they specifically said they don't want. That's not what I did in this case. Right. They said, hey, we don't want this. I didn't send it to them again. But then when we were in person, I was like, guys, I like, we're already in the area. We might as well go look at this one.
Right.
Everything you're telling me lines up with this house. All these houses you want to look at don't line up with any of your vision.
Right.
So I just don't want to come off as, hey, we're not, like you're doing exactly what the opposite of what you said. No, I'm listening to you, and then I want to create a solution based off of that.
Yeah. Well, so I did think of what I was thinking about. Sometimes it's knowing the motivation, like what's the why for why you want this or whatever. And so, you've got a dog, so a fence is important. Does that have to be in place, the moment you take over the house? So there's certain things where you're like, okay, well, we can put a fence in if it's not huge. I mean, So you can kind of temper some of those and get really down to the serious motivations of what they want. And yeah, as long as you're listening that entire time, if they want to see a house, I'll show them a house, just like you said. But always being mindful of, okay, well, you talked about wanting this, that, and the other, like that's not in this house. So what about this house is making you kind of interested? And then you can kind of learn motivation. And
correct.
Yeah.
You can dive into why they want to look at that house.
Yeah.
Is it because they're getting antsy and they're starting to make, because that is one of the worst things you can do as a buyer is get antsy and make an impulse purchase and I think a lot of people did it over the last couple of years. And it's frustrating them now because now they're like, well, I made this purchase and I have 3% interest. I hate this house.
Right.
We want to sell it because it doesn't make sense for our family. It doesn't make sense for our setup. And they don't like it. They didn't really like it in the beginning, but they had been beat out on so many houses. Now they bought it. Now they have 3.5% interest. And now interest rates are at 7%. And they're like, oh my God, what do we do?
Right.
And I'm going to tell you, like, you got to put a price on happiness.
Exactly. Literally.
Like you have to put a price on happiness because that's awesome. You have 3.5% interest, but you are like when you think about interest rates, you got to marry the house, not the rate, because you can refinance that rate. So, and like we just talked about, your house is worth more than it was a year ago.
Exactly.
So go sell that house with 3.5% interest rate. Go put that money down, and now go start earning equity on the new house that you love. And you have to put a price on happiness.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. No question. I mean, and I think to your point as far as timelines, I have the conversation with renters who, I'm looking to buy and purchase, and then they start to initiate the conversation, months out. Next May, my lease is up, but I start to have a conversation too right away where like, okay, what's your situation if we don't get there by that lease, your lease being up? Will they go month to month? Do you have another opportunity? Because the more open you can keep your field and less restrictions you put on it, you're bound to get into a better house, to your point.
Correct. And renters, in all honesty, if you've got a lease that's expiring a year from now, you should be thinking about it 6 months ahead.
Yeah.
Minimum.
Yeah.
Because I've seen this I've been a active real estate agent for the last 2 years now. And I've seen this multiple times already, is I'll have buyers that I'll run into, and they're about a month before their lease, and they're looking for something more specific, and they're like, no, we got to renew our lease. And now they don't have anywhere to go unless they renew their lease. And we don't have enough timetable to turn them around.
Right.
And they're now their rental company knows, hey, I know they can't go anywhere, like they don't have anywhere else. So no, we're not offering them month to month after this is over.
Exactly.
And so they sign them into a new year lease, and now they're stuck for another year.
Right.
And that happens all the time. So and people are like, well, my lease doesn't until next April or whatever. Start having the conversation now.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I'm certain every real estate agent has run into this where somebody, even if it's not a rental situation, but they're like, I think I'm about 6 months out or whatever. You get the ball rolling, you start sending in properties. And about 10 days later, it's like, can we go look at this? And suddenly your timeline moves up because you fell in love with this house that you saw online, which I'm all for. Let's have it. I'm excited for it. But it's just people's motivation changes so drastically and quickly. And it's understandable because the market is moving fast and you've got to kind of stay on it.
Yeah, and people don't and the thing is, you never know when that perfect house is going to pop up. And people will tell you one thing, but they're wanting another. Like that happens all the we're not in the market for another 6 to 8 months or whatever. And then you start talking to them and you're like, guys, why aren't you in the market? And it's something that they preset in their head where, well, we don't think we could qualify.
Right.
Or we think we got to do this and we think we got to do that. Oh, our credit score is not that great. I was talking to somebody earlier and they said, my credit score is not that great. And I was like, okay, what is it? They were like, it's 680. And I was like, I can get you proof for anything.
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
what do you
Yeah.
like? And I'm not a mortgage lender, but I know what you're like. What's the other factors? And then they laid out their other factors. I was like, guys, just submit the app.
Right.
Like we're gonna be fine.
I don't know about you, but I'm still running into people. There's an assumption that 20% down is the standard, and that's like we don't have enough savings. Like nobody puts 20% down. I mean,
guys, we're really good at what we do. We can negotiate closing costs sometimes.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And, people know that they can get 3% conventional and have open up their opportunities, and they're not aware of it. They like you said, they get something in their head, and even if they've heard it, it didn't sink in. And once you get past that, and you're like, oh, well, yeah, well, let's go. I understand now.
Yeah, I got somebody into a house last year for $694. Like, that's what they had to bring to closing.
Yeah, I had one of those a few months ago, and I still, the entire time, I was like, is this really going to work out like this? And it absolutely did. And I was like, well done.
Having a good mortgage lender working with you that you can throw out scenarios, which I use Eamon Dorsey with. They switched here recently. It's they're with Leader One Financial.
Okay,
and I use him because I know I can call him and bounce ideas back and forth off of anything. And I send everyone his way just because having that relationship with him it's so easy for us to find somebody, build a situation that fits them, and then go put them in a house.
Yeah.
And if you're a real estate agent, you're out there listening to this, if you don't have a relationship with a lender like that, you need to go find it because you're doing a disservice to your clients.
Absolutely. I was at a networking thing today, and I literally spoke to I gave a shout out to my lender, Sherry Statler with the Mortgage Experts. And I've had 2 transactions with her in a row where one of the reasons we got chosen is because we were able to do a quick close, under 30-day close. So standard closing 30 to 45 days. I try to get right under that if I can. So I call her, said, they're pre-approved. Do you think we'll be able to do this? She goes, yeah, we can make it happen. She's knocked it out of the park every time. And for that to be a deciding factor on whether you do or do not get the winning bid on a house is huge.
Yeah. We got one last month just because he picked up the phone and called.
Yeah.
And called the agent and said, hey, this is a for sure buyer. We can close this file in 17 to 21 days. They didn't want 17 to 21 days, but because we said we could do it, they were like, oh, this is and that is a huge deal. Now, don't lie on anybody's behalf because then you're going to mess up your integrity. So have somebody that does have good integrity and knows the files well enough that, hey, this is going to get completed.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be that agent that says, hey, this is going to get done. And then 6 months or 60 days goes by and you're still waiting for stuff to try to happen. And
don't be that guy. Don't be that gal.
No.
Yeah, for sure.
No, always have integrity.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Well, I always talk to, in trying to build a real estate business, it's, you want to build it by referral in the end because that's, you don't have to get out there and hustle as much. And the only way to do that is have the people you help trust you and engage with you to where they want to send you and refer you to friends and family. And there's nothing more rewarding than, you helping somebody and then they refer you to a family or friend and watching your business grow in that way. But you're not going to get that if you're making promises you can't keep or, and I think one other thing that agents need to do and is stop getting mad when people don't use you. I have an abundance mindset. Don't take that stuff personally. You don't know what that situation is. Right.
I don't know how many times I've had somebody use me because of the personal relationship we have and because I'm giving them advice on different stuff and I've got other things that we've done. And then a family member that hasn't talked to them in 6 months is mad because they've used them, or vice versa. I've had family members that I don't talk to very often use other real estate agents. And I'm like, that's all. At the end of the day, everybody that's awesome. You got a new house. That real estate agent made money. I don't spend that much time with you. So why am I entitled to that?
Right. Yeah.
That's where I think that gets in people's way because then they get it in their head hey, I'm the only person they should be working with.
Right.
When half the time they don't even know whether you're still in real estate or not.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Good point. No, absolutely. And I was talk to people about coming with showing some value or whatever. So beyond just the real estate service. And obviously I want to help them beyond the closing table, but also having go-to vendors and referral partners that, just call, I got a guy, I got a gal that can do this. And
it's my entire spiel.
Yeah, exactly. So I've got a a book of people that I have go-to people, and I'll say that in the buyer or listing appointment. I was like, here's the people that I highly recommend. So if you need anything, so I just.
And we do a lot of networking. We've
exactly.
been in other networking events together. That's a huge thing in the real estate industry, and just knowing different people. Like I know some things that I know roofers that I absolutely love. And I know other people that I absolutely love to send people to, because I know when they go out there, they're going to brighten that person's day.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I look for anytime I'm going to give out a referral, is somebody that's going to go out there with a smile on their face, and they're going to take what I know and take it a step further and give my clients knowledge.
Yeah.
Because that's the biggest thing, is owning a house is scary. Like, there's so many things that could go wrong. There's so many things that could come up and happen. You got to have people in your corner that know what the hell they're doing.
Right. And I've over the last 3 years, I've had 2 listings, and it was a younger person that parents or somebody to convince them, like, you need to be a homeowner to be responsible. And they're like, I'm not homeowner people. I don't want to maintain this house. I don't know what to do in it. And it's like, totally get it. Like, you're self-aware enough to know this is not for you. I get it. Go rent and have it. It's not for everybody, because it's stressful.
It is stressful. It is stressful. And the thing is that you've got to look at it as an investment. I mean, owning a home is one of the biggest investments that anybody is going to make in their lifetime. And you have to look at it as that. So the money that you're putting into it to maintain it and everything like that, you should, in turn, get that back out of it. Now, it's not dollar for dollar.
Right.
You got to use the appreciation of the house and different stuff like that, but you're going to have those maintenance factors. So maybe that money you saved, you have to save a little bit extra, because you still may have something pop up, and you've got to account for that. I work with a lot of investors too.
Yeah.
So figuring out how they save for rental expenses, like if they've got rentals or they've got flips or different stuff like that, it's all an investment.
Yeah.
So you have to be willing to invest that money, knowing that in the future you're going to get it back out.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot like long-term in the stock market. It's always going to go up. I mean, to this point, in history says that real estate is one of the best investments. It's going to keep going up. And I was like, renter, like, if they're ready, if they do want to own a home and don't really know when, I said, when do you want to stop paying your landlord's mortgage? You're paying a mortgage. You're just paying his mortgage. Why don't you pay your own, and then you pay yourself? And yeah.
Your interest rate's 100%.
Right.
I can get you 7 today.
Right. Exactly. There you go.
And that's the conversation. It sounds like salesy or whatever, but it's true. Yeah. Like, your interest rate's 100% if you're paying rent. Like, it is what it is. You're never going to see any of that money again.
Right.
And the only person that's benefiting from that, now you got a place to live, so there's some benefits, but financially, the only person benefiting from that is the person that owns the house, because they are gaining the equity every single month. When you make that payment, they're paying down their loan.
Yeah.
If they have one.
Well, and especially in this market, you're paying more to rent. If you say you had a home, you're renting a home, you're paying more rent than you would a mortgage payment to be in that home. Because just like there's not enough houses to buy, that means there's not enough places for people to live to rent. And so they've jacked rent up so high that it's insane what people are spending $2,500 or $3,500 on to rent.
Correct. Well, and the same things that are going to affect you owning a home. So to name a few is taxes. Mm-hmm. Taxes have went up across the board. I mean, there's a big thing going on in Jackson County about people not wanting to pay their real estate taxes because they've gone up so much.
Yeah.
So taxes are a huge thing. They're going to go up. Guess what? They go up on that's a trickle down effect. They're going to go up on your rent too.
Yeah.
Insurance, it's going up 30%. I talk to insurance agents all the time just because that's the industry that I came from.
Right.
And it's going up by an average of 30%. So guess what? Your rent's going to go up. Like, these are things that are going to go up annually.
Yeah.
And it doesn't change. The only thing is, you're never going to see any of that money again.
Right.
And now the side effects of that is, well, what if my furnace goes out? Like, I don't have to pay for that. Well, that's cool. I mean, that's true. But you probably are in trickle down effect. You're going to end up paying for it, because if that investor was good and saved that money, awesome. They've already built it into the cost, and you're already paying for it anyways. If they're not good, guess what you're getting on the next renewal?
Right.
You're getting a huge price increase, because now they have to build that cash back up.
Right.
Because they didn't have it.
Yeah.
So it like, you're going to pay for it. It's just whether you're paying for it and you're benefiting from it, or you're paying for it and somebody else is benefiting from it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a huge thing when it comes to renting.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on kind of the changes that we've seen in the market over the last 6 months? Because I know and really over the last year, it's changed so much since the COVID times, because I mean, hell, houses were selling first day they were on market. Mm-hmm. And now we're up to an average of 39 days. What are your thoughts on how the market's changing?
Well, certainly things are staying on longer. And I think the price point with which the price point where there's so many buyers and not nearly enough homes, is that price point has gone up too in those last 3 or 4. So I used to tell people, like, anywhere from 200 to 250 is a sweet spot, where if you're a listing at that price point, like, it will go overnight, because that most buyers are right there. That number just keeps going up. And so I'd tell people, like, if you're under 350, it's going to be,
we can still sell it overnight.
Yeah, exactly. But if you're above that, there are fewer and fewer buyers at those higher price points. So if you're looking at 400 or 500, 600, 700, that's to me, and that's what I've seen has really kind of slowed down. There's just always fewer buyers at that price point, and there's more inventory there, but there's not the same competition. So those have lingered a little bit.
Yeah, and I think agents have to adjust their marketing approaches, because with those 400 plus or 350 plus homes, you have to, now that's coming back to where I feel like the 550 and under got out of that, like during the COVID times, like those were really selling still too pretty quick. But now that it's backed off to where like that 350 market is kind of the ones that now you have to treat anything above that as more of like a quote unquote luxury home. So you have to actually hire nice marketing, get nice pictures, do flyers, go door knock, go do these things, find target markets that are actually going to be interested in that house, find the good things about that house, hire a copywriter that can actually write good copy to sell that house, because you want to build that dream of living in that home and find the person that actually dreams to live there. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't find that person, that house is probably going to sit for a while.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you don't see people making lateral moves. And a lot of times those people, right now, you don't see a lot of people making lateral moves because they don't have the same buying power as they did 7 months ago, a year ago.
Yeah.
I mean, interest rates have doubled. Yeah. Like over the last year and a half, interest rates have doubled. So now you're looking at somebody that wasn't buying at that 450,000 range. Now their buying power is 350 and under.
Yeah. And it's pretty easy to start showing people, like, as the prices go up, like there's a lot more house than finishes or not. I mean, a $225,000 house and a $275,000 house are vastly different homes. I mean, they just are. And then the same thing, 270 up to 350. So yeah, your buying power gets less. And so, especially if somebody was looking during that point and this is what I can expect to buy, and now they've come back and they're trying to do the same thing. Like you said, they're not in the same, it's not even the same neighborhood.
No.
Yeah.
No, you can't even buy your neighbor's house anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's not to say that their situation hasn't bettered or whatever, that they're going to be able to take that money out. But now, like, it's just so much harder to make a lateral move or to make a move up, because you're like you may try to buy a $400,000 house, but now you've got a $3,000 house payment, and it's just hard.
Right.
Like, I mean, everybody, like interest rates, yes, they are at the average that they have been over the last 20 years. Like that's one thing that I keep hearing. But they, in terms of what we've had over the last 3 years, they still suck. Yeah. That's just the reality.
Well, and then, like you said, and they were there long enough for that to become what people, the assumptions, like 5 was the limit. Like anything above 5, you're like, oh, wow. But yeah, this is the more of the standard, but that sunk in and sat there for so long that it became, and the people,
the first time home buyers have never seen interest rates this high.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, since 2008, we haven't seen anything this high. So people, they just don't know that this is like, hey, this is probably the reality moving forward for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of experts out there, a lot of people that dive into it even more than me that say, hey, they're going to be back down in the 5% next year. Well, that's cool. But guess what? All the things that were happening before where there was too many people in the market and you're having house prices go up and way too fast, that stuff's going to happen again if interest rates drop that low.
Right. Exactly.
Guess what? The refinance market's going to boom again.
Right.
I mean, and it's just going to cause all this stuff to continue to climb, which then again is costing you money. You might as well get into it now, because if that does happen, then when that interest rate goes to 5%, now guess what happens to your house goes up.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's going to be another 2020, and it's going to just go up 15, 20% overnight.
Right. I mean, the stories of people buying houses, at a certain price and literally a year later selling them for $75,000, $100,000 more. Those are happening left and right. And so, yeah, that kind of thing has slowed down. But yeah, if interest rates drop, we're just going to be right back there.
Correct. So like, listen to the professional. Buy now.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Now's your best time. If that is the case. Now, here's the flip side of that. If interest rates go up to 10%, now what are you going to do? You're going to pay 10% a year from now?
Right.
Because guess what? It doesn't, like we just talked about it, purchase price, like the payments going from 5 to 7% has went up $400, $500, $600,
right,
depending on what price point you're at. Guess what? If they go up to 10, they're going to go up another $400, $500, $600, maybe $1,000.
Right.
Now you can't even afford those houses.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah. And then I saying you get now, like you're saying, you built equity, and you can turn around, you can get the equity out of that and buy. So everybody's concerned about, well, I don't want to get out of this rate because I can't buy. It's going to go up the next time when I go to purchase. But you're going to have enough equity. You can, if you want to, you can work with the lender and go over your options, but you can put a bunch of that money down straight away, and then you've cut that purchase price down considerably. So 7% looks a lot better at, when you've knocked off $100,000 off the top.
And I seen that here recently. I had a client that bought a house in a pretty nice area, and the sellers had originally paid, like, I'm going to use round numbers so that it makes sense to the people. So let's say they paid $300,000 for it. Well, this house was selling for $600,000. Now they bought it like 10 years ago. But that's how much the market has changed over that period of time. So they paid $300 and something for it, and now it's selling for $600 and something. And guess what they went and bought? $1 million house. Like, because they were able to take all that money and that equity and just roll it into the next one.
Yeah.
And kept their payments roughly the same.
Yeah.
And now they've got $1 million house.
Right.
And guess what? That house is going to be in 6-7 years from now.
Right.
1.2, 1.3.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that is how you build wealth, through buying a house.
Exactly.
And moving into the next one and moving into the next one. Like, if you're, like, everybody talks about they want their forever home. I say find your perfect home for what the situation is now, because the chances of you loving this house 5, 7, 10 years from now. Now, if you buy a house out on land and it's the perfect thing ever and it's a ranch home and you can live there forever, that may be your forever home.
Right.
But you never know what's going to change.
Yeah.
I mean, there's 2 markets that are really huge to target if you are a real estate agent, to where you can find buyers and sellers all day long. It's people that just had kids and people that just had kids turn 18.
Yeah, exactly.
Because everybody's mindset shifts at those 2 points.
Yeah, and when I've tried to focus my business the last year on some couple of transitions. So people, empty nesters who are like, they realize, like, I Johnny's leaving. Johnny's the last kid and leaving, and now we've got a 4-bedroom, 3,000 square foot home, and it's just you and I. What do we can't live here.
I don't want to take care of this thing anymore.
No, exactly. Just the, cleaning it and maintaining it and getting it heated and cooled is just not worth it.
And people love their houses. And I'll tell you a story that makes me, that when I'm talking to people about their forever home, and they're like, no, that my mindset would never change. My mindset would never change. And I'm like, that's awesome. But guess what? My dad, I have a 68 pickup. The original owner was my grandma, or my grandma was the second owner on 68 pickup. It's a stick shift. I'm the third owner because my grandma had it, and then I bought it from her. But it was my dad's truck his entire time growing up.
Okay.
Absolutely loves this truck. Still loves it to this day. But he would rather drive my sister's truck because it's not a stick shift, and he doesn't have to push down that hard-ass clutch anymore.
Right.
Now, that is about, he got older, and his knees don't work the way they used to,
Right.
and now he doesn't want to drive it because it's a pain in the ass to drive.
Yeah.
He'd rather drive the one that's got a automatic transmission in it,
right?
Because he's old.
Yeah, People,
you don't want to walk up those stairs anymore.
No, I mean, motivation can change like that. You're right, and you never know what it is that's going to shift that or whatever. But being aware of it and reacting to it is your best case. It's always your best situation.
Yeah, I mean, and I give him crap about it. Like, I'm like, you're getting old,
right?
Oh man. He's like, you're gonna get there one day,
right?
That's probably true.
Yeah.
But it's just, I see that over and over again in people as they're like, we thought we'd live here forever. But man, this is a lot to clean.
Yeah.
This is a lot. And we've just got so much stuff in here and different stuff like that. We just want to go live in an apartment that we don't have to do anything to maintain it or whatever, like buy a condo or something like that. You see that all the time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there is finally getting to be kind of a condo market in Kansas City. I mean, there's always been the Plaza area, but there's, there hasn't been a huge market. So obviously we're here in the River Market, and there's a big market here too, and it's growing all around. And so they're getting those people that transition to either condo living or maintenance free home living, patio villa communities and things like that,
or townhomes, stuff like that.
And so once people they start to think, you put that seed in there, and they're like, every day they're mowing and they're doing this, and pretty soon they're like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
I really don't. Let's talk about the maintenance free house or community we were discussing.
I get to do everything I'm doing now, but now I don't have to go mow.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that sounds super. That sounds super.
Yeah.
Like, I used to love mowing, but now every time after I mow, like, my knees hurt for 3 days. I don't want to do it anymore. No, I hear that all the time. So I completely understand. Like, you gotta, as you get older, things change. Don't take it personally. I mean, situations change.
Yeah.
It's just the way of life.
Yeah, for sure.
So I really appreciate you coming on. I think there's going to be a lot of things that people moving to the Kansas City area are going to understand about, like, hey, buying now, and how the market's still growing, even though necessarily the interest rates they suck at this moment, but they could always get worse. I mean, they could get better, and then you could benefit from that. I think there's so much value that you brought to the conversation. I really appreciate you coming on. Before we hop off here, real quick, will you tell people where you were or where you're at, how they get a hold of you again?
Yeah, so Justin Gifford with Gifford Homes, the ED Waters Network. Our offices are 169 and Inglewood Road. So yeah, a lot of my focus is in the Northland because that's where I'm from, but I've worked all over the city on the Kansas side quite a bit as well. So yeah, Gifford Homes at kw.com or 816-863-4460.
Yeah, and I really appreciate every viewer that's out there. I hope you got a lot of information about the market and everything on here. I really appreciate Justin for coming on. I'm Dylan Fry, the real estate guy with RE/MAX Advantage and the Fry Home Team, and I love being able to help you anywhere in the Kansas City area, wherever you're moving to, wherever you're selling. Anything, just reach out. My information's down below on this video. If this is your first time to the channel, make sure that you hit that subscribe button so that you'll get to see all of our future videos. Also hit that bell so you'll get notifications. And then if you grab some value from this video, make sure you hit that like button so that way it helps me grow my personal brand as well. Thank you.